Hi, and welcome to our session, Game On, Practical Gamification Strategies for Every Discipline. I'm Beverly Fleischman, and I'm joined by my Minot State University colleague, Dr. Megan Fixit. Today, we'll demonstrate how game-based strategies can enhance student engagement and learning outcomes across academic disciplines. And we'll walk you through 6 practical games you can apply in your own courses or programs. So Megan, let's get started.
All right, well, thank you, Beverly. So it is game over for traditional teaching methods. After years of research, we're finding that teachers may still lack appropriate and interesting content that engages learners and improves their learning. Traditional teaching techniques, such as those lengthy lectures, standardized testing, are increasingly being seen as outdated. These methods have served their purpose in the past. However, they fail to engage students or accommodate diverse learning styles. Another reason for the growing popularity of the classroom games is their ability to personalize learning. Games can be tailored to different skill levels, allowing students to progress at their own pace and revisit challenging concepts when they need to. This adaptability makes games a powerful tool for differentiating instruction and helping meet the diverse needs of students within a single classroom. I like the idea that I can use a digital teaching technique, non-digital technique, a discussion technique, whatever it might be to accommodate each student's specific learning styles. We are finding that teachers have to learn to use a variety of teaching practices because those conventional lectures just do not promote critical thinking anymore. And students are not showing up for class potentially, and they're just not engaged. But students are more likely to engage with material when it feels like it's a challenge, when there's a game, when there's excitement, rather than it just being a chore that they have to do. So, whether it's a digital platform, a gamified quiz, or a team-based problem-solving activity, the use of games really creates a more stimulating and memorable learning environment. So, looking ahead, it's really clear that integrating games into education isn't just a trend, it's a necessity because the growing popularity of these games is really driven by the recognition that games support a variety of learning goals, such as critical thinking, collaboration, and adaptability. So, as technology continues to evolve and students' needs continue to change, the education system has to adapt to keep up with these students. So, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Beverly to talk a little bit about why games work in the classroom.
Thanks, Megan. So let's start with the foundation, active learning. It's a strategy we're all familiar with. But Colico's research in 2017 gives us concrete evidence that it doesn't just improve engagement, it also builds stronger student-teacher relationships. That human connection matters, especially in classes where students might otherwise feel passive or disconnected from content. Now, when we introduce games into the mix, we're not replacing academic rigor, we're enhancing it. So Lamb and C's 2022 study supports this by showing that incorporating game-based learning strategies, it noticeably increases both participation and students' interest in the material. Students aren't just sitting back, they're leaning in. They're taking risks and they're engaging with content far more deeply. Lee, Ma, and Shi, they took this even further in a meta-analysis, which confirmed that gamified learning activities, they don't just feel more engaging, they actually lead to improved performance across different educational levels and contexts. That includes K-12, higher ed, and both in-person and online learning environments. And most recently, research by Lampropoulos and Sideropoulos in 2024 shows that game elements, even simple ones like competition, progress tracking, or points, they can significantly enhance motivation and focus. These aren't just short term attention spikes either. The data shows that gamification contributes to long term mastery of course material. So, the takeaway here is that gamification isn't about gimmicks. It's about using well structured, research backed techniques to spark motivation, increase participation, and improve outcomes. And all while helping students feel more connected and confident in their learning experiences. So now that we've seen the benefits of gamification, Megan and I are going to share 6 gaming strategies we've personally used to bring energy and focus into our courses. These games, they work across subjects, class sizes, and most course formats, and they're very easy to implement. Megan, she's going to describe word guess, fishbowl activity, and 2 truths and a lie. And then I will cover 3 games that I use in my classes: academic escape room, lecture bingo, and then match it or miss it. We've both seen firsthand how quickly these games engage college students and just elevate classroom energy. So Megan, take it away with gamified strategy number 1.
Thank you, Beverly. So, gamified strategy number 1. I wanted to start out with some strategies that are very simple, very easy, don't take a lot of prep time for instructors, but still get the message across of using those games in the classroom and still engage those students. So, the first one that we're going to discuss here is called word guess. And for this activity, the goal here is to try and guess a specific word based on clues that one student is giving without using any words or gestures that are listed on the card. So, as you can see here, I have an example of what these cards might look like, and this works really well for vocabulary words. So you can list a vocabulary word at the top of your card, and then you list some words that the student cannot say when they're trying to describe it to their team. So, to start this activity, you're going to split your class into teams, probably about 3 to 4 students in each team, and they're going to take their stack of cards, choose one person to be the clue giver for each round, and that clue giver is going to draw the first card off the top of the pile, and they're going to see that word at the top that they have to try and get the rest of their team to guess. And they cannot say the words that are on the card. So, this really makes sure that, students are in kind of a fast-paced game, they're energized, and this hopefully increases motivation for their learning. This is going to be a fun way to build communication and vocabulary skills. Like I said, I like to use this to help with those vocabulary terms, but I teach marketing, so I usually include things like generations at the top, and they have to try and describe different generations using words that maybe they wouldn't traditionally think of. And I think it's a fun way for students to really understand those concepts, but have to think outside the box, because this kind of wordplay really helps students develop, stronger verbal reasoning and enhances their ability to explain concepts in a new way. They have to, they're really pushed to find alternative ways to explain ideas, which enhances their flexible thinking. So it also encourages active listening and teamwork, as players have to collaborate and they really have to pay attention to each other's clues, because they're going to have to pick up on these kind of outside of the box explanations to hopefully be able to guess the bold word that's at the top. Once they've described this, then they're just going to rotate to a new clue giver, and that clue giver is going to draw a card and repeat the same process. So they'll keep going around in a circle until they run out of cards. So with that, I'm going to move on to gamified strategy number 2. This strategy, the fishbowl strategy, I love for getting a discussion going in the classroom in kind of a small, more focused group. So This idea is that you're going to take discussion questions and you're just going to cut them up into little slips of paper and you're going to put them into either a fishbowl or an envelope. And you're going to distribute either the fishbowl or an envelope to each group. I would say for this activity, you will probably want 3 to 5 students. This one could have a little bit more if you would like. And they're going to start out by again reaching their hand into their envelope or their fishbowl, and they're going to pull out a discussion question. So the first person is going to read the discussion question out loud to the rest of the group, and then the group together is going to work to answer it. Now, the person who drew out the question is going to be the person who has to try and facilitate the conversation. Now, sometimes when you're walking by small groups and they're having a discussion, you might notice that they answer it very quickly and then the discussion fizzles and then they want to move on. But the point of this is that the person who asked the question has to facilitate the conversation. Keep it going. Make sure that you're really analyzing and thinking about the discussion question and really thoroughly answering it. So, once again, this is going to be just kind of passed around. So the first person will go, draw it out, facilitate the conversation. Then they will pass the bowl to the next person, going to draw out the question, and they're going to repeat the process again. Now, this is really good because students have to explain, they have to defend, they have to debate course concepts with each other. So it really promotes active listening, really respectful dialogue, and critical thinking. And it also kind of helps those quieter students ease into participation by being able to first kind of listen to what others are saying and then reflect and then be able to make their own contribution and give their own thoughts. So this rotating role and open discussion really allows students to hear different viewpoints from a smaller group, and maybe they feel a little bit more comfortable talking in that smaller group than they would in a large classroom space. If you would like to, once you are finished, everybody has went through and answered all the discussion questions, you can come back together as a large class and ask the students the questions and just call on random groups to kind of give what their thoughts were on the question. And this is kind of a nice way to talk as a large group about the discussion questions because students have had a chance to talk in a small group first and really get their thoughts out and bounce them off others, which makes them feel a little bit more comfortable sharing those ideas with the larger group. So with that, I will move on to gamified strategy number 3. Gamified strategy number 3 is two truths and a lie. This is probably a game that you have all heard of. You've probably all played it in your childhood, but this one has a little different spin on it. So this is two truths and a lie, but using classroom content. So this activity can be easily created very quickly by using the true and false questions that you would get in a test bank in an instructor manual. And you just put 2 true questions and a false question on a card. And then students have to, again, get into a group, probably 3 to 5 students per group, and they're given their stack of cards. They draw it off, and the person who draws the first card is going to read all 3 statements to the group. The group then has to work together and discuss the statements and decide which 2 are true and which one is false. You can see on the card here, I have put the false strategy in italics so that the person who's reading can easily see which statement is false. But this is a really nice game because, again, it's fun and familiar, so students feel confident about understanding it and they're very likely to participate. But it's a good activity to maybe do at the end of a class period if you have 10 or 15 minutes left and you think I'd just like a little activity to try and reinforce what I've taught in this class period. This one is your game because it really requires students to recall and apply what they've learned and then thoroughly analyze each option and think about why are these true or why are they false. So this can really deepen students' understanding of material and help with that long-term retention because now that they've learned the concepts, they had a chance to kind of, apply it in a game-like setting. So as students debate and discuss which one is a lie, they teach and they learn from one another. So with this, I am going to pass the presentation over to Beverly.
Thanks, Megan. Building on Megan's examples, I'm going to share 3 gamification strategies that I use in my own courses. Each one offers a flexible, really high energy way to engage students while reinforcing important course material. For strategy number 4, I take really concept heavy material, or maybe a little drier material, and I turn it into a fast paced puzzle adventure through an academic escape room. So the goal here is to boost teamwork, deepen content mastery, and then just add a real burst of energy to the classroom. So what I do is I prepare a series of mini puzzles that are tied to course content or maybe chapter concepts, things like scrambled vocabulary, rebus puzzles, riddles, word searches, and even crossword puzzles. Flippity.net, and yes, .net, is just a terrific resource to create these puzzles. It has a really, really easy user interface, and it's just really a simple program to use. You just plug in your terms, and it creates the puzzles in a PDF format. If you want to design maybe more sophisticated digital-based escape rooms, and those work particularly well in online or hybrid classes, then I recommend the digital platform called Genially. It offers terrific digital templates and really a lot of tons of other features. And it's free for the templates. Of course, you can do the buy up for other features, but it really is a good program for the digital aspect of the escape room. I prefer to use the actual pieces of paper. You have your teams all huddled around them, working, furiously to try and compete and get the puzzle done. So what happens is I divide students into teams of 3 to 4, and teams receive one puzzle to start. And then once they solve it correctly, they move on to the next, sort of in this very structured sequence. And the first team to complete all the puzzles wins. And sometimes it's a small prize, or sometimes it's just bragging rights. Really just depends kind of on the day. And really, they also get to leave the class before it's over. And this is a huge incentive for those 75-minute long courses that I teach. The students are very furious to get out of there. One really important steadfast rule that I have: no phones or AI allowed. And any team that's caught using them is disqualified. It's similar to the bar trivia or trivia that you can play in coffee houses. It just really keeps the focus on true learning and teamwork. Students can use their textbook, but that's about it. Really, I found that escape rooms, they keep our students focused, they're thinking critically, and they're really working collaboratively. And it really does create just this fun sense of urgency in the room. So my next game is lecture bingo, and this is a simple but powerful strategy to keep students focused and engaged during a lecture, and the students love it. It's very easy to set up, and it's really surprisingly effective. So the idea is to distribute 4x4 bingo cards. You can see them on the PowerPoint, and they're filled with key terms from the day's lecture. So the example that I give up on the screen is I was talking about navigating legal NIP issues, which can be a very dry subject. I teach entrepreneurship, and this just turns it into a really fun lecture. And students surprisingly always say, wow, I had to really focus. I actually learned and listened and understood what you were talking about. I also like to throw in a bunch of terms maybe that aren't going to be in my lecture, maybe from popular shows that my students watch, or lingo. And it just kind of keeps things interesting. My students always try and get me to say these phrases so they can mark it off on their bingo card if they have it. But as I lecture, the students have to listen really closely and then mark off the terms as they hear them. And then as soon as someone gets 4 terms in a row, either horizontally, vertically, or diagonally, they call it bingo. I quickly verify their win, and there really is only one winner per round. Then I give out small prizes from the dollar store or candy to the round winner. And to keep students engaged, I found this out. I usually break my lecture into 3 or 4 parts so I can play multiple bingo rounds, because if you only do it for one whole lecture, the students really lose interest. There are some great free tools for setting up your bingo game, and it's not hard at all. You just plug in your terms, plug in some of those, outliers that aren't going to be in your lecture, and you can go into Alice Keeler's bingo add-on for Google Sheets, or use myfreebingocards.com. Myfreebingocards.com, I think you can get up to 35 or 40 bingo sheets per session for free. So it's really, and they're so easy to use. I also recommend creating a bingo callers card with your full term list so you can, check them off as you're going through them, and control the winning cards ahead of time to manage the pace and prevent too many winners at once. I found that out the hard way. I didn't kind of pre-look at the cards, and almost every student won in the first part of the lecture, and I was quite out of candy. So it's something you really want to make sure, just to look through that, every part of your lecture, there is only one winner. Honestly, lecture bingo, it can work across almost any discipline, and it does turn just a regular lecture into a fun, interactive experience. You'll see on my PowerPoints, the students that said I actually had to pay attention to what you were talking about in class, and I learned something from it. So it's really is just a good game that you can apply across any discipline. So finally, my last strategy is match it or miss it. And this is a memory style game that really reinforces key concepts through repetition and peer teaching. So what I do is I create 2 matching sets of cards, and one with terms and one with their corresponding definitions or even visuals. And then I make at least 6 pairs of these cards so I can divide, my students into small groups of 3 to 4 students. You can use index cards, or if you want a more polished look, Canva has great free flashcard templates to use. I've used some with some really intricate designs, or, you can put your course, whatever your course name is on the back. But they really are a way to elevate, your game, so to speak. So then the cards, you arrange them face down in a grid. So the teams will flip 2 cards per turn to find a match. And if they do find a match, then they have to explain the connection correctly to be able to keep the pair and earn a point. If if their explanation isn't correct, then the cards are flipped back over and the next team takes their turn. So then the play continues until all the matches are found and the team with the most point wins. And I do it as a round robin style play where winning teams, they play off against each other until the final team is standing with the most point wins. I'm thinking I'm going to create a little cup, like a Stanley Cup, or something that will just one of the teams can have the glory for the day, because it really does get competitive. The students are so into it, and it just brings so much energy to the class. And it's a really, really highly adaptable activity. It's really great for reviewing that vocabulary, classifications, theories, formulas. I teach entrepreneurship courses, and when we go through financial statements, or financial formulas, I use these games a lot. And the students really do understand how they connect. What is the how do you calculate profit, your gross profit or your gross loss, and and they really do remember it. And it's a lot better than going through the whole, spreadsheet of an income statement, and you'll lose, I lose students right away. So if they've really learned, it's a great activity for that. Um, so this concludes our presentation of Game On, practical gamification strategies for every discipline. And Megan and I really want to thank you for attending our session. We hope you're leaving with game-based strategies you can adapt to your own courses, no matter the discipline. And now we will take your questions. And if you have questions that we don't answer outside of the question session or question time, please reach out to us. This is our contact information. We're happy to give you more advice or answer any questions that you may have about our games. And we really thank you for joining us today.
Hi, so you said that on number 6, the match it or miss it, that Canva has some good templates. What was the template called on Canva? What am I looking for?
My apologies. This is Megan. My colleague Beverly had to be away today, and that was her game. So I apologize. I don't have a specific answer for you on that one. But please email her at that email address that she provided, and I know she would be happy to give you more information. I'm so sorry about that.
Okay, thank you.
Yes. And I saw that there was a question in the chat asking about how often games were used. And I responded to that in the chat, but I'll answer it verbally as well. I like to use some sort of game almost every day in my classroom. It might not be the whole class period. If I choose to do a traditional lecture that day, I still try and keep my lectures around like 25 to 30 minutes and then end the class period with a game to kind of reinforce things, just because I think students sometimes struggle to listen for extended periods of time. So I like to include a game in almost every class period. Some class periods, the whole entire period is a game. What other questions? I see a question about the digital escape room. And again, I'm so sorry. That was Beverly's kind of game. And she is unfortunately, like I said, not here today. But please email her and she's happy to answer that. Anybody else have any questions?
I was also gonna say, I think the escape room was Genially or something, like Genially.
Genial, yes.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Yes, I believe you are correct. Any other questions anyone has for me?
Thanks for your presentation.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you so much for attending today. We appreciate it.
Can I ask one more question?
Okay, sure, yeah.
So I have it's an identification course. Um, which kind of game activity would you think would be the best to utilize to help the students? I'm trying to get away from just rote memorization, but it's a plant ID course and looking for ideas.
Well, I would think any of the games would be easily adaptable. Because like I said, most of them, you can just use kind of vocabulary words and turn them into the game. So I think that any could be very, very usable. But if you want something, like I say, the first 3 slides are kind of more something that can be a shortened kind of game, and the last 3 games are maybe an entire class period. But I would think any of them would be very easily adaptable into any content.
I think match it or miss it and 2 truths and a lie would probably work really well for that.
Yeah, I was thinking with the fishbowl activity, because I go over maybe a dozen plants, and then I go and have them in groups and say which is the best, and they'd have to in a group decide which one was the best or most adaptable, and which one was like the worst to use, and why. That way they would, because we talk about you know. The cultural aspects of where to plant and what it requires. but
Yeah, I think that would be great. And like I say, you can probably if you're looking to maybe describe plants or think about, differences between maybe the word one is guess the word would be a good one as well, word guess, because they're giving descriptions. So that might be a good one as well. Thank you all so much. Have a good day.
Thank you.